Good evening for everyone here in Taiwan and Asia, and good early afternoon for everyone who's in the UK and everyone around the world. My name is Wesahana Pearson. I'm recording for Black Asia Magazine, and today we're talking to Carole. Carole, I am always someone who's looking for more information, new and innovative ways of building up our lives as expats, especially here in Asia. And naturally, in my research, I came across your platform, Carole, your website, and I really liked it a lot because there are so many places, quite a few online, where you can get information, data about traveling, about what you can expect to see when you go this place or that place, but it tends to be kind of cold, and your platform put a very pleasant, warm human face on teaching people what they can learn, what they can gain when they go abroad, and what they can expect. So I think it's very helpful and very useful. And so I'd like to know more about it to share with people. But before that, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you stepped into the life that you're leading now?
Well, thank you for inviting me. Lovely to be here. If I told you about my background, we would still be talking next week. So I'll just try and keep it to the expat lifestyle. Okay. And I'd done a lot of traveling before I moved overseas. And so that was kind of, the general holiday type stuff. But then I started going backpacking solo and did South America and Asia at separate times. And then I was fortunate enough to actually get a job where I was working in different countries around the world. And that took me on short contracts, a couple of months at each time, from everywhere, from the States to the South Pacific Islands and everywhere in between. And then I fell pregnant and got stuck here in the UK in what I call the butthole of Britain, but let's not go into that.
Okay, all right.
My husband then started applying for work overseas. And lucky for us, we had Tokyo as our very first posting. So in 2006, we moved from the UK to Tokyo with a 5-year-old and a couple of cats, and had no idea what to expect. I'm a very independent person. I was also busy running a publishing company that I had to sell before I went. So I didn't do any research. I'm one of these people, don't do as I do as I say, because I did no research. I just basically winged it. And so in Tokyo, we had 5 amazing years. We were scheduled to move to Berlin, Germany. After about 4 years, certain things took over and it took a bit longer. And I was searching around for ways to help my daughter, because by then she was about 10 years old. Moving with a 10-year-old is very different than moving with a 5-year-old. Anyway, big earthquake hit in March 2011, and we left for Germany as scheduled at the end of April. A couple of years in Germany, and then we moved to Pretoria in South Africa. And we spent another amazing 5 years over there before his office realized that we hadn't been home for a very long time, 12 years, in fact, and said, right, that's it. No more fun. Come back to the UK. And that's where we ended up in the coldest winter in 2018. So I've done expat life from end to end and back home again. So
all right.
That's kind of my background that's relevant right now.
Okay. What is the name of your website?
Well, I've actually got 3.
Okay.
The main one is expatchild.com. And that was the one that I started originally. And from there, I've also got the Expat Directory, which is a place for expat-friendly businesses to share their business listings. And then more recently, I've got a new one called Expatability, which currently is holding my one-to-one services and my podcast, which I started in the middle of lockdown and finished a few months ago just because time was making it too much for me. So expatchild.com is the one I think we're going to focus on today.
That's the one I came across and the one I was impressed by. Yeah. I'd like to know from you, it seems like the meaning of what this kind of person is always changing, or it can have different multiple meanings. How would you define the term expat? What is an expat?
I'm really glad you asked me that, because I've been in so many arguments with people about this word.
Okay.
I personally chose expat for two reasons. One is it's short and I don't have to start faffing around with too many syllables.
Okay.
And two, it reflects our lifestyle. It's moving overseas for business for a set amount of years, knowing that you will always return home at some point. So it's a temporary life overseas. It's not an emigration. You know, it's not, if somebody's moving permanently to a certain country, I will call them immigrants. So to me, the semantics can muddy the waters a huge amount. And I chose expat because that was my lifestyle. We knew that we would be moving home at some point. We knew that we were there for a set amount of years. So that's my definition of expat.
Thank you for that. Okay. Right. And that's most people, I think majority of people would agree with you on that.
I hope so. I hope so.
Now, you touched on this a little bit very briefly in the things you've just said up to now. To reiterate a bit, when you created the three websites you have, but mainly your Expat Child website, what was the need? What were you trying to address? Was there something in particular that you picked up on, that you wanted to, that you identified and said, let me target this as a way of helping people address specifically this or that?
That's kind of assuming that I had a focus in the first place.
Okay.
Things in my life just sort of evolve. Basically, what happened was I was looking for a way to help my daughter, my 10-year-old at the time, cope with the anxiety of moving to a different country. As a young kid, all they need is their parents around them. Everything relates to home and to, you know, the individual unit, the family unit. It doesn't matter where that family unit is. A baby, a toddler, doesn't care what's on the outside, as long as mom, dad, the dog, whatever, their teddy bears are with them, they're comfortable. You start moving on to when a child has thoughts of their own and friends and outside influences, moving becomes very, very tricky. And it starts to hit in about 10 years old. So that was fun. We were moving from Tokyo to Berlin. She was 10. I was trying to find ways of helping her, ways to help her understand what we were up to and to overcome the anxiety that she was feeling. I found nothing at all. There was a fair amount of self-indulgent, navel-gazing reflections on expat life as a child or third culture kids. Didn't tell me anything in particular. There was also very biased information about which is the best school to use in Berlin, which again doesn't interest me. I know that not everybody has the same ideals of education, for example. And so I was searching, not finding anything, getting more frustrated, but then the earthquake hit and anxiety levels just went through the roof. Everything turned upside down. And when we got to Berlin and trying to settle and finding it hard because we had PTSD, and then we had school issues. Oh my God, but I'm not going to go into that here. When I finally sort of calmed down a bit, I was searching around for a new project because I'd been doing freelance writer work and some other jobs while I was in Japan. They weren't giving me the satisfaction anymore. I was fed up with personal blogging. I'd blogged for many years and found it really quite self-indulgent. Nobody wants to know about my life. They were interested to see about Japan, and I'd been blogging 24/7 after the earthquake. I was burned out, but I needed something to do. I needed a project. I'm not necessarily allowed to work in other countries due to visa issues. So, and also I've been self-employed since 94. Working for the man is not going to really go for me. So I started thinking about writing a book because everyone has a book in them. I'm going to write a book. I actually drafted out the chapters of this book. Now, this is going to take ages, so I'll make it into a blog or an online magazine because I was still thinking of my publishing business back in the UK, which I enjoyed so much. So Expat Child was born out of that. What I needed was for quick, easy, straightforward, logical, common sense information that works for me. When we move, when anybody moves, it's a really busy time. When you're moving with children, the busyness goes absolutely mental because you're still having to run daily life and children's lives. And it needed to be quick and easy to absorb. It needed to be straightforward, sensible, and hopefully practical information. So I flung a few articles on the site and it got picked up by the media. Obviously, the earthquake and having a gaijin in the earthquake was important to the Western media. Yeah. So it got traction from that and it kind of grew, and it's grown ever since, and it's a labour of love. And it's been exhausting, but my goodness, it's been good fun.
Was that normal? Were there any other foreign gaijin or foreign people that you noticed who were in the area at that time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everybody left. Everybody left within 2 days of the earthquake.
Okay.
But we had to stay. And again, passport issues, plus my husband was working for the embassy. So he had to deal with a lot of the post earthquake and tsunami issues. So yeah, we stayed there. We would have stayed there anyway. We weren't going to leave. It's a shame that we had to leave because our posting to Germany was happening anyway. But,
I'm sorry if you mentioned earlier, what kind of work was your husband doing that required him to move around?
He works for the Foreign Office.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, from your years of experience and what you have learned, key points, takeaways, if you had to, and just here right now, you can't say everything, but what can you tell people as far as the hacks or the solutions for those problems that keeps arising, the chaos, the loneliness, the homesickness, the things, the anxiety that children feel? What can you do about those things, just in short, in brief?
In brief, talk.
Talk.
Yeah. Communicate properly to your children. Don't assume that they are... There's a phrase that goes around constantly. Kids are resilient. And I could easily rant on about this for a very long time, but it's a cop-out. It's a way of parents not dealing with the situation because they think that kids can cope with anything that's thrown at them. And it comes from war zones, basically. It comes from those poor children that you see in, say, Syria, who are still standing after they have seen horrendous situations. It doesn't mean that you can move your 16-year-old to a country, pop them into a local school with no knowledge of the language, and expect them to be resilient and to cope with everything. And that is a true example that I have heard recently. And you're setting your child up for some serious mental health problems if you don't take care and communicate and think the way a child thinks. When you're moving with little tiny children, they have a weird idea about moving house. They want to take their bedroom with them. It's familiarity. It all boils down basically to what's familiar with them. And you need to communicate properly what's going on. You need to not dismiss any of their concerns as being, oh, don't be stupid, that's not going to happen. Just talk it through. Give them sort of fire drills, if you like. Do you remember the fire drills? And
I remember, yes, in school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The more you do them, the more confident you are with what you should do if this happens. And there's a lot of what ifs in a child's brain. What if I can't find the toilet when I'm at school? What if nobody talks to me? What if I break my pencil? Little tiny things that we wouldn't think about, and we would easily say, oh, don't be silly, you just ask. But to give your children the tools and perhaps role play as many times as they are comfortable with it, they will then get more comfortable with living this new life of theirs. And expat kids are amazing. They make friends so quickly. You can find kids in a playground of all different cultures, all different languages, all playing without the language, and yet having an absolute ball. So get them to the stage where you can have proper discussions at their level, and life will so much easier for them, be so much easier for them.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Now, some people, expats, when they move abroad, there are children to consider as part of the equation. Some people move abroad and it's just one single adult or it's a couple. So can you briefly state some of the main challenges you've come across when there are no children involved, but these are adults thinking about me being an adult moving to a different place? Mainly what's going on there?
Okay, I think there are 2 or 3 main comments. The most, the busiest one, for want of a better phrase, is guilt, expat guilt. And that's one that comes up a huge amount in comments. I've got an article on my website called Expat Guilt. If you just scroll down and look at the comments there, you'll see how prevalent this is. And that's either guilt of moving overseas and leaving your friends and family, maybe aging parents behind, or more often, the guilt that the parents put on you. So they give you guilt trips. And some families are really quite nasty about that. And it's such a big topic and such a common topic that I created a masterclass, which is available on Expat Child, about how to get over the guilt, how to stop feeling guilty, and my one key point of how to prevent it altogether. And a lot of it is, again, common sense. I do common sense. This is my life, logic, common sense, not so much into the esoteric. Efficiency, common sense and logic is what gets me personally through. The other main problem that may cause what is sadly called expat failure, when someone decides that expat life is not for them and they go back, is having no support network. And this generally is for the accompanying expat partner, what is known as the trailing spouse in some circles. Because often if an expat couple move, it's for one person's job, and the other person can't always get work over there, and suddenly they are staying at home with very little to do. And if they don't have a support network and they can't find friends quickly, life can get very, very isolating. And that is one of the key causes of expat failure.
Okay.
I hate the phrase. I hate the phrase because we haven't failed. We've given it a go. It didn't work for us. But there is another one that some people are very keen on when they move overseas, and this isn't so much for expats, this is more for immigrants, is integration. And in some countries, you are never going to integrate because you don't look like everybody else.
Especially in Asia.
Yeah, very much so in Asia and in Africa as well in some places. But you are never going to look like the locals. That was something that came up as a very young child. I don't look like everybody. I wish I had black hair. I want my eyes to be pretty like everybody, so I look like everybody in my class. So integration, people try, and it seems to be only certain people that want to really push for integration, but it's not going to happen. Even in the UK, as a British person, I can move to a village nearby, and because I wasn't brought up in this area, I will never be able to integrate. I look like everybody else, sort of. I speak the same language. I have the same cultural background. But because I haven't lived in that village since I was born, I will still be a foreigner. So it's a very parochial idea. But you will see some people dressing up in kimono or and going, and, speaking fluent Japanese, for example, and wondering why they can't integrate.
In situations where integration is impossible, do you find that there's a higher rate of failure goes along with it?
No.
No.
No, it's more of a personal thing. The failure is down to support network and really not enjoying life in the new country. Many people go overseas with expectations. They're chasing the dream. They think the grass is greener. It isn't. It's just the same grass in a different place. And it may not be for everybody. Some people move to Japan. I keep talking about Japan because I have I've got the
Experience there. Yeah.
I've got the experience there. Some people hated it. I can't understand how they hate it. I thought it was the best place I'd ever been. And I felt very, very comfortable there, even though I stood out like a sore thumb. I'm 6 foot tall. I don't look Japanese. I'm going to stand out wherever I am, to be frank. But the culture, I totally understood it at a very deep level. And it's hard to put into words. Others were getting cross that they couldn't find turkeys for Thanksgiving. And but yeah, no, integration is a fairly individual thing, and they will keep working and then just keep complaining that they can't integrate. It's the support network, not having somebody to go to coffee with, not having somebody to chat with when you're feeling low, not having the chance to go out of an evening when your husband's working away, for example. And it's the support network, especially where kids are involved. You don't have a childcare, you don't have a babysitter. I never had one anyway, even in the UK. So to me, it wasn't that difficult. And I was able to make friends at the school gates, which was easy at the young age. As the kids get older, they don't want mum at the school gates. Oh, no. So you don't have the school gate connection that you would have with the younger ones or the kindergarten kids.
Okay.
No, it's the support network that's key.
All right. You just mentioned your masterclass. What other products, services, books do you offer as teaching tools to help people move as seamlessly as possible through their expat experience, their journey?
I do like a checklist. So there are various checklists. I've got a dreadful memory, so I need to tick things off a list whenever I'm moving. Okay. And plus all the moving palaver is always down to me. I've also got a fabulous ebook about making sure that you arrive smoothly. And it's kind of what to pack in your suitcases that you carry on the plane, so that when you arrive and you're in maybe temporary accommodation for a few nights, things are more comfortable and the kids are occupied, and because we know what unoccupied kids are like. I've also written a book, proper book, about expat education that's available on Amazon. And that gives you things to think about before you choose a school. Because going to the school that everybody else sends their children to isn't necessarily right for that person, for that child, or for that family. You move to Germany and you find that school starts at 7:30 in the morning and finishes on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. You can't do a job. You can't have a normal life unless you know these things. And they will have some schools that will work to a more work-friendly day, for example. It's little things that you don't expect when you move to a different country. Just really, really small things. And as I say, the masterclass about Expat Guilt, which is me on video whittering away about what to do about guilt with beautiful slides and all sorts of truth bombs.
Okay. All right, Carole. Yeah, this is very well thought out on your part and very well put together. I like how you present everything. Wrapping up, coming towards the end of our interview and looking towards the future, the immediate future, the near future, what are your plans for your website and for your life in general?
Life in general, well, who knows? I think the last couple of years of COVID have told us that we don't make plans.
Right.
Currently, I'm in the UK. My husband is working overseas. He's currently in India. He was in Afghanistan until Afghanistan fell.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was in Afghanistan for a couple of months in the summer. Now he's working in Delhi fingers crossed he can get back just before Christmas, and then he's back there again next year. So my personal life is basically waiting around for everybody else and dealing with pets and daughter and stuff. So my life is currently my work. So I've got Expat Child, and that's ticking along beautifully. And so I am now going to focus on expatability. And expatability is making sure that people are well prepared for expat life, that going with their eyes wide open is so important, rather than chasing the dream, chasing the mythical grass is greener. And a lot of people leave their home country kind of running away for reasons. So I want to explore that a little bit more after a really interesting conversation I had recently. And I may start up my podcast again. I need to see how the new year pans out. And I'm also going to increase my one-to-one offerings, because at the moment I've got a 1 hour expat espresso. It's a kind of a way of me helping people make these big life-changing decisions, because it's really overwhelming to make a decision on behalf of somebody else, your entire family, especially where kids are involved, because we get this huge mum guilt thing going on. Are we doing the right things for our children? And to talk it over with somebody that's been there, that's done that, that's had all the experience of living it, plus talking to so many other wonderful expats as well. Something that they can talk over with me for an hour, I can very often clear it very quickly, give them clarity, and overcome overwhelm. I have to be careful when I say that, because that get confused. So that's a 1 hour expat espresso, and I'm going to increase the availability of those, and I'm going to create some bespoke programs so that people can get my own personal input into their new life, so that it's a success from the very start. And I basically do that by talking at them, as you can probably tell.
You're good at talking. I can definitely say that.
Oh, thank you. I don't do it very often. But yeah, I've had a lot of practice, many years of practice. I didn't move overseas until I was 40. So I've had a lot of life experience behind me, as well as the expat life experience. But,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know where my personal life's going. Goodness.
No one really does. All right. Before we officially wrap up, any other final thoughts or comments? Anything else you'd like to say or share?
Yeah, I'd love to say about growing up overseas. It gives kids the most amazing outlook and tools for success that you could possibly imagine. It shows them other cultures. It enables them to naturally respect other people, and it breaks barriers down by seeing the way that other people live. The tolerance is incredible. I do want to encourage parents to prepare their children and to actually talk to their children, and not just farm them out to the nanny and the childcare. To spend some time with them. You can have amazing adventures overseas. The kids won't necessarily be aware of it until they're grown up. The other thing is I mentioned briefly the third cultured kid reference. And these are children who have been brought up in another country or have different culture parents from different countries. And they find themselves a bit stuck. They don't have an identity. And that is something that has, as far as I can tell, I haven't done a huge amount of research into this, because there are so many people that are far more academic than me that have researched and written about this. But they can't fit in. They're too foreign for their home country, and they're too foreign for where they choose to live.
What I found with those particular, when I've met people who are third culture kids, they're kind of like chameleons. They find it very easy to talk, converse, ingratiate themselves with any group of people, but on a deeper level, forming actual bonds with these different people, that can prove difficult for them if I'm understanding them correctly.
It's possible. It's possible on the surface, which is fine for the great majority of people. They can fit in with whoever they wish to. Like you say, they are a chameleon. What a wonderful topic to.
Analogy. Yeah.
Some people need to be deeper with their identity. I can't say I've ever delved really deeply into my personal identity. I'm just me. And, it's just not something that I've actually done. But I've had a few people write to me and say how screwed up they've been from being brought up overseas. And there's another thing that will always happen, not always, often happens, is this idea that when a child reaches 18, they are then an adult and can cope on their own. I've actually got a client whose parents moved away from her host country and left her there at college when she was 18. And she is well and truly messed up.
Yeah, she has abandonment issues, like she naturally would.
Oh, completely. And it's not even a passport country. And so people need to think a little more about their family and less maybe about themselves. By all means, go and have an absolute ball in your dream country. Maybe consider twice about what you're dragging your children through at the same time, because I'm seeing some messed up results.
Does that become harder, you think? Do you become less considerate and less compassionate when you live abroad as opposed to when you're home, when you're used to? No, okay.
No, not at all. You see people like that over here as well. It's an individual, but some people can become so tied up in their dream that they forget that the children aren't necessarily going to follow their parents' dream. I mean, are you doing what your family did as work? No, I'm not.
No, not at all.
No, I was supposed to be a pharmacist. I hated science. So our children don't necessarily follow their parents' dreams.
Okay, thank you very much, Carole Hallett Mobbs for Black Asian Magazine. All right.
Thank you so much, Wes. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Not a problem.